Hey, welcome to FailCraft Casts. I'm Hammy, hope you're well. This is a turbo ride through the Goblins vs Gnomes expansion for Hearthstone. All of the cards have been announced and released. We're going to be doing a new player, quick intro, little bit of analysis, pretty light introduction for new players in a new player-friendly sense. This is going to be quick. It's going to be 120 cards in half an hour or less, so hold on to your hats. The metagame is going to change. Everyone's going to play these in really exciting ways, and this expansion releases December 8th in US, December 9th around the rest of the world. Without further ado, let's jump on in and ride through. Number one, Annoyotron. So the mech card is new in Hearthstone, Goblins vs Gnomes, a new card type as you can see. Annoyotron, a great turn 2 drop with 1 attack, 2 health, taunt and divine shield. If that is in any deck that can buff it, it's certainly going to stick around on the table and slow people down. So any hero class that can buff will benefit from this as an early game wall. Pretty strong, pretty good. Priests with power word shields, druids, and of course the new spare part cards, which we'll come on to in a second. So a great early game slower, but could also be interesting in late game control style decks as well. You've got to get rid of that divine shield before we can get through the taunt. If you can buff the health, all well and good. Be prepared for some more of that. Next up, Lingatron. Battle Cry, random weapon for each player. Interesting for the 5 mana cost. The stats are low, but if you can equip yourself a weapon when you don't normally have one, and remember it's random, could be great, could be terrible. If you can remove your opponent's weapon, could be interesting. A situational legendary, I think, but probably very, very situational in terms of where you play that card. Perhaps not the strongest to be dropping in all places. More of a novelty legendary, I think, off the top of my head. Bomb Lobber. 5 mana for the 3/3 stats, but then 4 damage to a random enemy minion. There are better ways that you can do 4 damage, but it's still a relatively strong minion that could make some trades. So a little bit crazy. Random number generation, random effects are a thing in Goblins vs Gnomes, so not a one that will find its way into a bunch of decks, but could be quite interesting in Arena. Boombot, this is summoned by Dr. Boom, so it will pop out from something else. Dr. Boom is a legendary that summons this. Death Rattle deals 1 to 4 damage to a random enemy. Very, very random and very fun. Crazy, crazy ness. The Cogmaster, 2 attack while you have a mech. Mechs are a theme in Goblins vs Gnomes. Some mechs create spare parts. Spare part is a random card from a bunch that can do various different things. We'll look at the spare parts and what they do later. 2 attack while you have a mech. There are lots of cheap mechs. Cogmaster could be early game pressure. You could see a mech style zoo, and indeed some people have been trying to make Warlock rush decks or early game rush hit hard with small minion decks. If you have mechs, then the Cogmaster will fit into that nicely. Interesting to use. Dr. Boom summons the 2 Boombots. The bots will explode 7/7/7, and then the Boombots, remember, do 1 to 4 random damage to a minion, so that could be quite interesting to see what those guys do. Let's rock and roll through and see. But yeah, situation, I think. Not going to be in every deck, not a universal legendary by any means. Enhancer Meccano, giving your other minions Wind Fury, Taunt or Divine Shield at random. I could actually see this having use in Shaman decks. I think that also potentially in some zoo decks as well. There's various interesting things you could do with this. I think it is situational still though, but you could see it perhaps dropping into, I don't know, maybe like a rush deck. I think in a rush deck, if you've got a lot of minions on the table, pretty much any of those are decent. Divine Shield keeps on the table, Taunt prevents your opponent from getting through, and Wind Fury means that you'll pretty much win the game. So could be a use for that. I might try and enhance a Meccano with some tech in a mech deck or some kind of rush deck. Explosive Sheep, I love this card. Death round of 2 damage to all minions. Unless it's silenced, then this is really stopping aggro decks in their tracks. Lots of decks with lots of small minions, say the Zoo Warlock deck. Your own eggs, various kinds of things. You can throw this down and do 1 damage. Really good for clearing small minions off the table. So I expect this card will see a lot of use, particularly anti-Zoo. Flamecannon, totally random, 4 damage to a random minion, perhaps not the most solid thing in the world, but it's really, really funny. You can sort of, very, very damage efficient for that 2 mana, but you need to make sure that there's only the 1 card ideally, or 2 cards on the table. You want to try and reduce your opponent's board of minions, so that's doing 4 damage to the minion that you want it to be doing damage to. But very mana efficient. I'm sure that people will try and manipulate this. Remember, it's a mage card, so we will see what we can do with that. Goblin Blast Mage. Looking magey again. If you control a mech, deal 4 damage randomly split among enemy characters. So it's kind of like a mad bomber, but if you have the mech, then you can do random 4 when it comes into play. For the 5 attack, 4 health, not absolutely awful. But yeah, you can put some good pressure on. If you have the mech down, which I'm sure you will in this deck, then really that's an excellent set of damage that you're sticking on top as well. So Goblin Blast Mage could see some play, I think. Mana Bomber, well, the Mad Bomber's older brother. The 6 damage between all the characters, hilarious in Arena. I've already tried this out. And hey, if you can get him into play early on, again, probably situational for these you'll see in decks, but there's going to be a massive mess with this card in Arena. It will be funny, perhaps not so much in constructed decks, but certainly in Arena. Mech Warper, now good for warping in more mechs. Your mechs costing 1 less, kind of like the sort of a Novice Summoner and similar cards that already exist in Hearthstone. I can see this getting play. Mechs are definitely going to be a part of this expansion, and you can summon in a bunch of mechs. I can see a mech style rush, this Mech Warper being a key component. So strong card, want to combat with other mechs to see play. Engineer Thermoplug, well known of course to Gnomes as it's pronounced, but Gnomes in World of Warcraft. Now then, enemy minion dies, summon a Leper. Late game mech finisher. If you can wreck your enemy minions off the table, then Leper Gnomes will be popping up everywhere. Could be pretty dangerous, but again I see this as at the moment being a situational legendary, unless perhaps you can ramp it out earlier by getting it played earlier than it could be normally. Again, strong, the 7 health may mean that it gets dropped. By the late game, are you going to be able to kill enough enemy minions, unless you're playing a rush deck, to make summoning all of those Leper Gnomes very effective? Against big late game minions in that stage of the game, if you haven't already won, I query how much value that's going to get. Micro Machine, this is a great card. Mech at the start of every turn, gain 1 attack. Can you put it behind tanks to keep it alive? Can you buff its health? Remember, you've still got Young Priestess, you've still got Master Swordsmith. I can see Mech Zoo, this being quite strong. And remember, it's each turn, not just your own turn, so that can get a lot of health very quick, providing that you can keep it alive with that 2 health. It will be quite strong. I like the Shredder cards. Now, Shredder is a theme in Goblins versus Gnomes, and these Shredder cards are pretty awesome because they have kind of a theme of sort of, these death rattles. This one, the Piloted Shredder, summons a random 2 cost. There's also another one that summons a random 4 cost. Now, the stats are pretty solid in themselves. I would not really worry too much. Maybe you could say the 3 health is a little bit low, but summoning that random 2 cost, you've obviously got the battle cry cards that summon in a minion at the same time. You then have these cards which summon a death rattle, another card. I think there's definitely room with these for sort of Watcher style decks, where people are making these into tanks, and you can produce sort of a really strong mid game effect, or a mid to late game effect, whereby you sort of maybe ramp into these cards. You can then attack with them. If they die, then you get the minion back. And providing it's not awful, teaming it up with things like Sun Fury Protectors, maybe Defender of Argus, similar things like that. I think there's going to be some interesting uses of these Shredder cards in particular. So watch out for Piloted Shredder. Brilliant in Arena. Anyway, just because of the additional summoning effect and the value, quote unquote, of that. But I can see some sort of good pressure with these, particularly if they're teamed up with like buffing cards and similar. So watch out for Shredders. Piloted Sky Golem, there we go, that's the one I was referring to. Instead of a random 2 cost, this is a random 4 cost. 6 mana, again, slightly expensive. Health feels a little bit low. Can you combine that with health buffs? I am thinking of a deck, I'll be honest with you, with Golems and Shredders and Druid. I want to innovate these out. I want to set them up with tanks and taunts and see what they can do and see if I can win. I think there's a mid-game ramp that can really get really nice with those as being a key factor. Next, Recombobulator. Transform a random friendly minion into a random minion at the same cost. Yeah, okay. I think that's going to be a little bit nuts. Best use, play a legendary, transform your legendary into different legendary, maybe. I don't know. That could be an interesting way of using that. Sort of, trade a Nozdormu for a Ysera or a Malagos or something like that. I'll embark into Ragnaros. Of course, yeah, big late mana cost minions could be transformed into something equally helpful. Potentially, who knows? So that's the main use for Recombobulator. Shrinkmeister, this will be absolutely awesome. You can give a minion -2 attack this turn. You can make things smaller. You can see why this fits in well with Priest, because you'll be able to bring things into the range of, say, for example, Shadow Word Pain or similar. So that should be quite useful. Any 4-attack minion against a Priest couldn't be Shadow Word Pain, couldn't be Shadow Word Death. This will let you manipulate those. I see good use for Shrinkmeister. And then also don't forget Kodos as well. Things like sort of mind stealing and other things as well. So Shrinkmeister, I think we'll see play. Sneeze Old Shredder, this is fun. Death Rattle, summon a random legendary. Stats not fab for that 8 mana, but then it's like, you know, some people say perhaps OP. Shamans could have fun with this, you know, for example, if you kill it and reincarnate it and then kill it again, then you'll see people trying to do combos like the Thaddeus combo, where because a shaman can reincarnate a minion, if you reincarnate this a few times, you're summoning lots of random legendaries, but are the legendaries going to be good or not? That's the challenge with that one. It is random. Spider Tank 3/3/4. This is a real solid. This is like a Chillwind Yeti of the 3 mana range. Brawl card for Arena. You can throw, of course, tanks, taunts, similar things on top of that. It will be nice and sort of slowing. It's a mech, which means it can team up with the other mech things. So I can see that being thrown in. Great in Arena, but also I think we'll see that buffed in various decks. Really good candidate for turning into a taunted tank. And don't forget, of course, your spare parts. Unstable Portal, loads of fun, 4 mages. Random minion to your hand, it costs 3 less. There's already been so many funny videos of people summoning like crazy legendaries. I myself in Arena managed to have a Illidan as well. I managed to grab an Illidan and play him turn 4 or something ridiculous with an unstable portal. So lots of fun to be had there. Is random, of course, but who knows? I think I'll see Arena play. Upgraded Repair Bot. I like this very much. Friendly mech for health. And remember that with the priest cards like the Dark Cultist buffing minions for health, there's a real synergy. I can see Dark Cultists, upgraded Repair Bot, and all kinds of things. Priests and mechs could actually be really, really solid too. It's going to be really, really strong and nasty, so watch out for that dropping into priest decks with mechs, 100%. Villain's Chosen, priest-wise, give a minion 2/4 and spell damage 1, a really chunky buff, whatever you're going to actually put that on top of. Priest are pretty strong, coming back at the moment, so I can see a bunch of this coming up as well. Even Northstrike Clerics, imagine a Northstrike Cleric suddenly becoming +3, +7. It's a really, really strong buff for that 3 mana. Expect this to be played a bunch, I think. Voltron. Now remember that Voltron is only summoned by the Mimiron's Head card that you're going to need to see, so this isn't a direct drop, but yeah, if you can actually somehow get this out, and to get the head you need to sacrifice 3 mechs. You need to have 3 mechs on the table before you play the head, so Voltron is not easy to get out, but if you can get him out, charge Mega Wind Fury with 4 attack 4 times in a turn, and that health, he's pretty much a finishing card if you can get him out, but you need to get the Mimiron's Head out, the next card. At the start of your turn, if you have at least 3 mechs, destroy them all and form Voltron. So you need to have 3 mechs on the table, you then need to play Mimiron's Head, and then it needs to survive until the start of a turn. So there you go. You need to somehow protect those mechs until Mimiron's Head has been down for a turn, I'm guessing, but I'll have to double check the mechanics of that. Situational, I think that card is, if you really be forming a deck around trying to get that to work. Goblin Auto Barber, that is a rogue card, so absolutely nut stuff. Give your weapon 1 attack, 3/2, really, really nice stuff. It is a tad slow, but I can imagine in Arena just being real, real nice. It's a real nice Arena card if you're playing Rogue. So, as for other Rogue decks, I think it's nice to drop in, but I don't see it being a key component. Unless, of course, Rogues are getting really weapon heavy and getting more aggressive in the early game, because then this comes into its own. 2/3/2, really solid stats anyway. Goblin Sapper, 4 attack while your opponent has 6 or more cards in hand. Really, really lovely against sort of the handlocks or similar. Mildruid, but a lot of people are trying to build in this expansion. I can see a Mildruid having a bunch of fun with this card as well. Or indeed any deck that mills tries to stuff your opponent's handful of cards and then you throw down some Goblin Sappers for massive attacking. So can be used against handlock. But at the same time, I think this will see some use. It will be quite specific, but it's either going to be a tech card or it's going to be built into a mill deck designed to take advantage of it. Let's have a look at the spare parts. Give a minion 1 health. Various mech cards and similar in Goblins vs. Gnomes generate spare parts. So these aren't cards that you can put in your deck, but they will get generated by various cards that you play in Goblins vs. Gnomes or get from Goblins vs. Gnomes. So that's a very simple 1 health buff. Not hugely mana efficient. Returning a friendly minion to your hand for 1, absolutely awesome. So you see, would you rather have 1 health or return a friendly minion for 1 mana? I'd have this. It's a free bounce, you don't need a panda. You can just start bouncing cards up and down, giving a minion taunt for 1 mana. Again, pretty handy. Imagine sticking that on an Ancient Watcher, Oasis Snapjaw, any of those new cards. Friendly minion stealth to your next turn, again, absolutely awesome. It's a token card, of course, but not too bad, I think, actually. Freezing a minion, I've already used this in Arena to great effect for freezing people down. Freeze a big minion, so really, really awesome. Pardon me, imagine playing this with Nice Lance, or similar. Swap a minion's attack and health, that's a budget a budget piece of science there, which is loads and loads of fun. Whirling Blades, minion 1 attack, 1 off lethal, but yeah, it's a spare part, so you might be able to sort of put a little bit of pressure on with that, but again, it's like the health one situation again. Bouncing Blade, I find this card hilarious. It's got its own new animation that was shown at BlizzCon as well. Deal 1 damage to a random minion, repeat until a minion dies. So you've got to throw that around and around and around and around and around, but it will shred any decks that have huge health minions that are out. So imagine against things like Handlock, for example. With warriors, you can throw down a commanding shout so your minions can't die this turn. You can put down an armor smith. Imagine commanding shouting an armor smith, and then it would bounce around and around and around and around until everything had 1 health. So if there's a commanding shout on the table, then it will reduce everything to 1 health and then it will stop, but you could just get ridiculous amounts of armor with that card. So yeah, Bouncing Blade, expect this to see play. Imagine it with cards like Acolyte of Pain, draw all of your cards and things as well. It could be absolutely nuts. Clockwork Gnome, basic name. Death Rattle of adding a spare part to your hand. You can certainly grab a spare part that we've just seen. I can see this being the trigger and initial turn 1 play, kind of like the Leper Gnome and similar in many a. Does that hurt friendlies too? Yes, it does. Absolutely does. To the Bouncing Blades. That's going to be hilarious fun. Gnome, I think that's going to be a core staple. It's a nice little token card that you can throw down and then get the spare part. 2 damage if it doesn't die, good effect if it dies nonetheless. So that will be pretty handy, I think, and you'll see that as a core of mechs. Experimenter, draw a card if it's a minion, transform it into a chicken. I just, yeah, I don't think that's going to be used a huge amount. I'm going to skip through that. Tinkertown Technician, if you have a mech, gain 1/1 and add a spare part to your hand. A nice, actually, card. You can throw that if you're pressuring away with sort of an early game mech deck, then got a mech on the table, that will be absolutely awesome. The 1/1 and a spare part, that means that this is going to be doing some nice damage on turn 4, so I can see that dropping into some mech decks. Clockwork Giant, this is the new giant that's mech for 1 less feature card in your opponent's hand. Imagine, for example, if you're playing against a Handlock, lovely piece of tech for anyone who's stuffing their hand full of cards. Or even if you're playing a Druid Mill, you could throw this in, fill your opponent's, or any kind of mill deck, throw this in, fill your opponent's hand with cards, and then start throwing Clockwork Giants everywhere. I can see that seeing play. Jeeves, at the end of each turn, this is kind of like a card I remember from Pokemon that stacked each player's hands up with cards. This would sort of put pressure on. Interesting sort of theory craft questions. This would grab some nice cards, so it's quite cool for that. Drawing to that 3 cards. If you've, of course, run out of cards and you've played your hand all the way down, then you will just keep drawing and drawing and drawing cards. So it's really nice card shuffling, unless your opponent can take advantage of it as well. So pretty nice. Could see its way into some sort of aggro decks and similar. Instead of waiting for an table to draw your cards, you can instead just throw down a Jeeves. So, interesting there. Shield Maiden, Warrior card. Battlecraft gaining 5 armor. Not bad, actually, as a sort of fairly heavy warrior player myself at various points. I quite like the look of that. Going to be very, very nice indeed. 5/5 for 5 mana. And then you're going to get that 5 armor too. So, you can trade stuff off the table with that. You can stack up with some armor and control warrior. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So I'm going to throw that into warrior decks, expect that to see play. Ancestor's Call, random minion from each player's hand into the battlefield. Yeah, okay, it's Shaman randomness. May see play. It's a fun card, I think. Foe Reaper 4000, I really like the look of this for a legendary. Also damages the minions next to whomever he attacks, so he does area damage. He's got nice high health, you can buff that 6 attack, expect him to see play, I think. And on look at his 6, he can't be big game halted, you could Wind Fury him. I could see him in a druid or anything that can sort of ramp him up. Really, really nice. The Robo Cub, well, this is a druid card, I do believe. Very, very awesome. Robo Cub, taunt, and then you can have 1 attack or 1 health. It's either a 3-2 or a 2-3. It can slow the game down, it can attack, it can do whatever you need. Expect him to see play. Brilliant in arena, kind of like a mini druid of the claw. Fits in well with the druid choices, and of course could help druid wall against early aggression as well with that 2-3, so expect that to see play. FailCannon, at the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to a non-mech minion. Throw it down. It is going to do a bit of damage, so it's quite powerful. Okay for a warlock, of course, with the fell nature. Non-mech minions, I think a lot of people drop in some mechs. I don't know how this one is going to work out, in all honesty. It'll be interesting to see whether it drops in. You're throwing it up behind tanks, and it is somewhat random, so it could hit your own minions as well, I'm guessing, but I need to go grab some clarification on that one. Strujank Clunker, I had to be very careful reading that one. Give a friendly mech 2-2, 2 attack and 5, and that's a warrior one. It's pretty solid. Remember that Harvest Golem, for example, is now a mech, so you can throw down a Harvest Golem, and then this after you get a 2-5, and you can buff, say, your Harvest Golem up to being sort of pretty much a Chillwind Yeti. So yeah, I can see that for warrior style mech decks. Cool pet for hunters. Draw a card. If it's a beast, it costs 4 less. I think that's pretty nice. Imagine a Savannah High main for 2 mana. I've seen that's Corehound for 3 mana. Yeah, so if you're playing a beast-centric deck, I can see cool pets certainly getting some play. Coghammer, interesting. Give a random friendly minion Divine Shield and Taunt. Oh, imagine if you drop that on things like Yetis or similar different things. That could be absolutely nuts. Paladin weapon, of course, so something nice to throw into a paladin deck. And I can see some paladins walling out really nicely with that, so I think Coghammer will get some play. Whirling Zappomatic, Wind Fury, 3-2 in a first go. That's just totally grinding Dust Devil that Shamans have into the ground. And yeah, this is absolutely nuts. I can see it being loads and loads of fun. Imagine you could whack away some Echoing Oozes with this really, really easy. People will drop it in and try and use it in the early game. I think situational, but certainly shows up some older cards. Shaman, Dunemaul Shaman. Funny, of course, with Overload. Shaman-wise, of course, with the Overload mechanic, but this is an Ogre. So ogres, a lot of the ogre cards, as the ogre sort of thing, have a chance to attack the wrong enemy. So keep an eye out for that. Hey, and welcome to Timo. I see Alex Lan. I see X3 as well. Hello to Ludzano, Nuska, and Sparta. Great to have you all with us on this splendid Sunday. So, Dunemaul Shaman. Lots of the ogre cards can attack the wrong enemy, 50% chance, so I don't think ogres are too bad if you can silence them, but of course by silencing this you lose its Wind Fury. Ogres will be able to clear tables quite quick. Their health on that, ooh, that's a little bit wrong. Let me just see, I need to get back the card that we just had up. I'm doing a bit of a screen area. There we go, that should be okay, lovely. So, halfway through, let's keep it going, we can keep this pace coming. Ogres in general I think will be pretty chunky. Certainly in arena they'll be quite funny. I think that there'll be uses for ogres in terms of if you can get them into something like a priest deck, or you play them with owls or similar. Maybe if you ramp, then getting ogres out early in the game. Their sort of core stats for their mana cost generally tend to be quite good. It's just a 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy that of course is the little razor blade in the candy floss, so if you can find a way around that you can see play with them. As for this particular example, I can see this, well, as a turn 4 you can pretty much clear boards. Brilliant against sort of like various aggro, but remember that these cards can also ignore stealth and ignore taunt. 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy. It doesn't matter if it's stealth, it doesn't matter if it's taunted. Blizzard have said that specifically, so this could actually, you could try and use ogre cards to pick off things that are, you know, stealth, for example, and with things like the Shade of Nexaramus and other stealth cards that are popping into the game, could be some use there. So the Ogre mechanic, I think, will be an interesting one for people to try and build decks around and see if they can actually exploit them. Ogre Ninja, stealth, 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy. So you see, for 5 mana, 6/6 is great. Stealth is absolutely awesome. Let's say, for example, I drop a I can't even silence this guy, of course, because he's stealthed unless I have an area dispel, an area silence, for example. So it'd be interesting to see. I feel that he's a bit situational. Gazira, I like Gazira muy mucho. So whenever this minion takes damage, double its attack. So yeah, it's got a nice chunky amount of health. It's certainly going to take some damage. I think there are pretty much good ways to try and get this chap out. And of course, if he does get silenced, then that's going to be absolutely nuts. I remember it's a hunter card, and he's a beast. So there are ways that he can be summoned and buffed and all sorts. So I pretty much think that Gazira will be an awesome hunter finisher. Expect Gazira to see play, and remember, because he's a beast, he can also be obtained from a hunter's web spinner too. So the web spinner will certainly people have been picking out Gazira from their web spinners. And Sensei is a mech. At the end of your turn, give another friendly mech 2/2. Nuts. Put this up behind a tank with other mechs. Profit. It's like a young priestess and a master swordsmith, or whatever the swordsmith is called, on steroids. So in a mech deck, this will see play. Hey, lots of fans of Gazira. I think Gazira is looking awesome. Snow Chugger, that's looking magey. Freeze any character damaged by this minion. It's kind of like a mini version of a water elemental. The water elemental is of course 3/6. So I can see Snow Chugger freezing some stuff in the early game. Nice for slowing down perhaps weapons-based decks. Situational. The freeze is not so good against little minions in the early game, good against weapons-based heroes. So I think it's good if you team it up with things like Ice Lance. It's a nice card, but I think that we're going to have to see how the metagames work out as to how much people use this, because you don't really want to be using this. 3 health is probably quite a bit in the early game, but I think that a lot of people will just trade him off the table. He's a very obvious target if you throw him down. I would be quite inclined, if I was a warrior or similar, just to swing, get him out the way, take the freeze in the early game, so it's not messing me up in the late game. But I think it'll see play. So, Burly Rocked your Trog. The Trog cards gain buffs when opponents cast spells. Now this is nasty. Keep an eye out for this one, because to attack forever whenever your opponent casts a spell, 5/5, 7/5, 9/5, buff up that health for 4 mana. It's a strong 4 mana drop anyway with its 3 attack and 5 health, because that bulky health body will mean that you can certainly trade some minions off the table anyway. So keep an eye out for it. I think that Trogs will actually be pretty nice, and there's also of this Trog as well. Could you combine it with Millhouse? Yeah, okay. All of your opponent's spells are free next turn if you play Millhouse, but I think that most people would try not to play spells against Millhouse for that reason. But imagine if you're playing something like a Miracle, anything that throws a bunch of small spells out, the Burly Rocked Trog then becomes a priority for them to kill. Feign Death, trigger all death rattles on your minions. People are already trying to find ways to use this with hunters, but imagine with Sylvanas. 8 mana mind control, throw down a Sylvanas, and this, you can steal something with Sylvanas. Is death rattle of stealing a minion, and Sylvanas is still alive. Absolutely crazy. So all of the death rattles are awesome. Feign Death hunters are going to have loads and loads and loads of fun. I think that we're going to see a bunch of hunters in this expansion doing all kinds of crazy and fun things. So keep an eye out for Feign Death. Will be played most definitely. Little Exorcist, Taunt, Battlecry, getting a 1/1 for each enemy and Death Rattle minion. Each enemy Death Rattle minion. Didn't quite read that properly. So the Little Exorcist, and of course if you're playing Death Rattling, Undertaking, Rushing decks, a Little Exorcist is your big counter. You throw it down, and for all the Death Rattles it suddenly becomes massive, and it has a taunt. So I'm pretty sure that this will be used by a lot of people against a wall, so that'll be nice and solid. Expect it to be seen, particularly against hunters, particularly against anything using Undertakers. Sabotage, Rogues, destroy a random enemy minion, combo, and your opponent's weapon. So the random is not huge, but imagine against like Tyrion Fordring, for example, for a Paladin, you can get rid of the Ashbringer, and you can get rid of a weapon or something as well, perhaps. So nice nice and strong. So it's nicely balanced. I think the random bit balances out the sort of utility of it. You just don't know what the minion's going to be, of course. And then destroying the weapon, of course, is situational too. So if it's a weapon heavy metagame, I'd certainly pack a few of those in. Paladin cards, Scarlet Purifier, deal 2 damage to all minions with Death Rattle. Well, there's nothing else to say apart from you saw the previous card. If we just flick back, you've got the Little Exorcist as a counter there. Paladins have got if people thought that Death Rattles and Undertakers were going a bit nuts, then you've got several cards that can help you deal with those now. However, this, if you have Nerubian Eggs, will let you trigger those into the Nerubian skittering things, the 4/4 minions. 4 attack, 3 health, nice and strong, and that's such an early game drop. Paladins against Death Rattle heavy metagames will certainly throw in Scarlet Purifiers, so this will be nice to sort of be hitting things away. Steam Weedle Sniper. Hunters, your hero power can target minions. Now this is a target. The Hunters will play this card, I certainly would. Your opponents will try and get it off the table as soon as possible. Imagine if you throw it down, then you can be doing nice pressure. Doing 2 damage to minions if you want with your Hunter hero power, for example. You can even drop this in the late game and start sniping off key minions. So I think we'll see some definite play of the Steam Weedle Sniper. Demon Heart, 5 damage to a minion. If it's a friendly demon, give it 5/5. Lots of people enjoying like a 6 mana, 6/8 Void Walker. I think Blizzard in this expansion have tried to make demon decks a little bit more viable. In terms of like pure demon decks that warlocks are running, rather than the sort of variants, the sort of zoos and the handlocks and the similar things. They'd like to try and push demons a bit more into a warlock style of play, rather than relying around the card draw mechanic and the sort of turboing through. So it's alright. It's not the greatest epic in the world, but with some of the other demon cards, maybe you think that it'll be pretty strong. So it's pretty balanced, I would say. The 5 damage is alright for 5 mana, for nuking something off the table, but buffing your own demons also pretty cool. Druid of the Fang, if you have a beast, transform this into a 7/7 as a druid. So it's kind of like a claw-ish. It should be loads of fun. Druids, you can throw down some beasts in the early game. It's not a hunter card. It is 100% Druid. Druid of the Claw, remember, is now a beast. When Goblins vs. Gnome releases, Druid of the Claw is now a beast. So if you've got one Claw Druid down, you can throw down a Fang, and suddenly this 7/7 is very powerful on turn 5. So if you can get the setup, then it'll be very, very nice indeed. Even if you drop some early game beasts into your Druid of the Claw deck. So this could really turbo up, and imagine if you're turboing into Druids of the Claws and Fangs after perhaps a very low mana early game beast drop. Remember, Druids can ramp stuff out with Innovate and all that kind of stuff. So I think Fang will see play. It's how you set him up and what you build around him or her. The Anti-Killbot, Battle Cry of Restoring 8. I quite like this for topping you up in the mid to late game. I think some weapons based decks will throw this in as a tech. Handlocks could also use it, maybe Hunters, Paladins and similar. You can get that early game big heal, and the 3/3 will help trade something away at some point. The Paladin Legendary, the infamous Paladin Legendary. Whenever a friendly minion dies while this is in your hand, gain +1 attack. So this, nice for the 5 mana, but if you can charge lots of little minions in the early game, and you can draw this in the early game, then it becomes most effective, but it's still only got that 7 health, so it can get silenced. There are lots of things that can remove it. If it gets silenced, it then just becomes a giant 1/7, of course. So, of course, it doesn't have immediate impact when it's played on board, and it's very, very, very vulnerable to silence. So, alright, can be set up with lots of little early game minions. We'll see how it plays through. Crackle, 3/6 damage with an overload of 1. A nice big Shaman RNG card. I think people probably prefer lightning bolts, but we'll see if it gets some play. Anima Golem, at the end of each turn, destroy this minion if it's your only one. People will try and make it. Maybe this will get silenced by yourself if you throw it down and then silence it. It could be very, very awesome. We'll see. May well get thrown into a sort of zoos as a finisher, for example. But You need a bunch of stuff on the table. Your opponent will be trying to take everything out to make sure that this dies. And remember, it's at the end of each turn, whether it be your turn or your opponent's turn. So let's wait and see. If you hide behind a stealth minion, of course, and your opponent can't get it, the Anima Golem will be wrecking a lot in the mid-game. So strong stats if you can get the setup done. Arcane Nullifier, I love this card. It's going to be the Sludge Belcher, but just a mana less. Taunt, it can't be targeted, Fairy Dragon style, 2 attack, 5 health, nice big wall. If that gets buffed by anything, it will be even stronger. We'll absolutely see some play. Flying Machine, Wind Fury 1/4. I just don't think this card is going to really get huge amounts of play unless you try and wombo combo it with a Priest, for example. Force Tank Max, Divine Shield, nice enough when you throw this down. I've seen it in Arena, 7/7. The Divine Shield keeps it alive for one go before it probably gets wrecked afterwards. So it's not good in Arena. I don't know how huge it's going to be in Constructed. Goblin Stalker, a really nice turn 2 drop. Particularly good for Arena, and you know, maybe sort of in some early game decks for throwing it down, trading, using it to either as a token that gets buffed up in the later game, or trading away against rush decks. Nesting Ray, Battlecry of Destroy Beast. He couldn't be anything else. 6 attack, 3 health. He'll get killed. I don't think you really want to destroy a beast that much at this point in a game, so I don't think it's going to be hugely used. But the tech of destroying a beast, who knows? If hunters become absolutely nuts, maybe this could see a bit more play. So don't rule it out. You could see it just being like a slightly more situational, what's his name? Big game hunter. Hobgoblin, whenever you play out one attack minion, give it 2/2. Kind of quite cool this in terms of you could set up some rashes. Imagine like token paladin, for example. If you're summoning lots of little minions from a paladin, and remember there's a wicked paladin card, this will buff your wisps for you Wisps fans. Imagine a young Dragonhawk, some of the zoo cards, for example. So Hobgoblin will see play in a whole bunch of decks with small token minions if it's set up behind a tank, probably. Junkbot, whenever a friendly minion mech dies, gain 2/2. The 5 health will keep it alive for a bit. The 5 mana is quite expensive. You need to sacrifice a lot of minions to make it worthwhile. So we'll see how it goes. It won't ramp up that quick. I just don't think that for a 5 drop it's going to be absolutely amazing. Kazan Mystic, take control of a random enemy secret. Given the amount of secrets and how much secrets have come on since Naxxramas, I think this will see play for robbing various secrets. And it gives neutral people ability to deal with enemy secrets, so hunters, paladins, mages, all who are throwing secrets around. I'm going to have to watch out for the Kazan Mystic. Mechanical Yeti, Death Rattle, giving each player a spare part is pretty nice. For a mech deck, it's that sort of solid card that you can throw in to get some more pressure on, but what's the opponent's spare part going to do? We're just going to have to wait and see. Kind of an upgraded Yeti in a way. If you don't mind giving your opponent a spare part. Metal Tooth Leaper, Druid, give your other mechs 2 attack. Each class, of course, having a card to support mechs. So that's going to be pretty tasty. It's a solid 3/3/3. So you can put. Sorry, is this Hunter? Yeah, it is Hunter. Sorry, I thought it was a Druid. It's Hunter indeed. Give your other mechs 2 attack. So you're throwing down a bunch of early game mechs, and then suddenly your mechs get big and scary. A one-eyed cheat out of there for a rogue. Whenever you summon a pirate against stealth, trying to get pirate rogues back in the game. And this will stay alive, but without 1 health, there's a lot of things that can do global damage to a side of the table to remove that 1 health, and you need to keep pulling the pirates to keep that stealth. So they're trying to make the pirate theme work. I think it's situational, really. There's not huge amounts of new pirate cards. Shadowbox of the Priest, whenever a character is healed, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. That's quite nuts. You know, circles of healings with Wild Pyromancer. You can have a lot of fun with that card if it's behind a tank. Expect it to see play. It's not a knife juggler, but it can do some interesting things. Shielded Minibot for Paladins, Divine Shield 2/2/2. Throw it down, perhaps it will go with Blood Knights. I can see some interesting fun, and it's kind of like a Scarlet Crusader for 2 mana, so that will definitely pop into Pallies, I think. Ship's Cannon, summon a pirate, deal 2 damage to a random enemy, throw that into a new pirate rogue deck. Pirate decks, whenever you summon a pirate, yeah, I think that really it's going to be a little situational. Tree of Life, restore other characters to full health. People are looking at Druid and Mill decks solely because they can try and deck their opponent out of cards and then restore everyone to full health and watch their opponent exhaust themselves into oblivion. Vitality Totem, at the end of your turn, restore 4 health to your hero. Nice Shaman-y setup. Self-heal in the late game. Shamans can survive a bit more in the late game. It's kind of solid. Heal for 2 mana, but again, it's like mana-tied totems and similarly need to keep it up behind things, but I think that there's going to be ways that this will see play. So, Shaman's experiment. Warbot for the warrior, enrage for +1 attack. It'll probably enrage in the early game. You'll get a 1/3 to a 3/2. I think it's a nice early game starter. You could drop it with Cruel Taskmaster to get a 4 attack 2 control, 4 attack 2 health. It trades very nicely with 2/1 cards as well. So remember, of course, you've got whirlwinds and similar that could also buff this up. So don't underestimate the Warbot. I think it can be a very nice early game card for warriors. Spell Stopper for mages. Adjacent minions cannot be targeted by spells or hero powers. I quite like this. I think that for protecting some mage cards, particularly things that you want to stick to the table for a while, Arena, absolutely awesome too. It'll be quite fun. I can see that getting play. I just need to think of what it would go with mages. Cobra Shor for hunters. 3 damage to a minion and the enemy hero. Quite expensive for what it does. It's not massively strong. I can't see a situation where I wouldn't want to play a different card that would do more to one or the other. But let's see how it goes. Cogmaster's Wrench. It is a rogue card because it's that black background. To attack while you have a mech. Rogue mech deck. Quite a nice support weapon there. A mechy, zooey, rushy type deck could be quite cool. Crush, destroy minion. If you have a damaged minion, this costs 4 less. So again, I can see that be quite nice. Some hard warrior control, hard removal, and all you need is just a slightly hurt minion. So I can see warriors playing that. I'd certainly consider it in a late game control. Fell Reaver, whenever your opponent plays a card, discard the top 3 of your deck. Yeah, okay, you can silence it. If you silence it, it's good. However, that might be quite painful. So, can you silence that card? If so, it'll be awesome. Remember, of course, that Fell Reaver can just be thrown into any old place. Floating Watcher. Whenever your hero takes damage on your turn, getting 2/2. So if you life tap, then you're buffing up your Floating Watcher. Could be quite nice. Again, Demon Warlock sort of quite an option with this. And then that's a permanent 2/2. It's not just a temporary 2/2. So I could see this getting some play for Warlocks. Whatever kind of Warlock deck you might be throwing it in. But ideally, if you're life tapping away, maybe say if you're throwing this down, it could be a good mid-game choice for a handlock, or perhaps looking at it as some kind of, a very late zoo finisher, or just playing pure demon. Glaive Zuka. I've only seen hunters with this, I do believe. A random enemy minion of 1 attack, a solid enough weapon for trading and picking off things in the early game for some control. Grove Tender for the druid. Each player mana crystal, or each player draws a card. Ramp. You can ramp. This will help your druid ramp even more, but you're going to ramp your opponent as well, so would you rather use the other druid ramp cards? I don't know. Implosion, deal 2 to 4 damage to a minion, summon a 1/1 imp for each damage dealt. If you don't deal damage, I think if the damage doesn't register on the minion doesn't get summoned. So imagine if you played this with Hobgoblin, it would buff them all to 3/3. Could be quite a solid demon deck card. People will try and play it. Light Bomb for your priest. Damage to each minion equal to its attack. What a wonderful way of just clearing the board as a priest. It will see play. Giants will cry. Mini Rage, stealth and spell damage +1. I think it's just going to get removed due to that very low health, even though it is stealth. So, may get arena play, but there are too many things that nuke the table, as I said, for area damage. If it had 2 health, 3 health, maybe it would be a bit more viable, but 1 health, not quite so much. Shaman's got a Power Mace. Random friendly mech, when this disappears, it buffs up Shaman decks. And for 3 attack and 2 health, you'll be able to trade away minions. So, not too bad. Shamans can use it for some early game board control, and then the actual buff. Well, if you're playing mechs as a Shaman, it will be good support. Puddle Stomper, Murloc 2/3/2, just a solid Murloc, nothing else to say about it. Salty Dog is a pirate, 7 attack, 4 health. He is going to die. I think he kind of feels like a bit of a core hound. So in pirates, mid-game pirate pressure, very, very top heavy. So it's going to get killed, I feel. Seal of Lights for you Paladins. 4 health to your hero, gain 2 attack this turn. I quite like that. I think that Holy Lights sort of takes a bit of a hit, but Paladins against aggro, this will be a nice way of a Paladin not only healing back but starting to pick off small aggro cards against him so he can protect his own. Lovely stuff. Suit Spewer, spell damage of 1, 3/3. The 3/3 is generally good. The spell damage will help it trade in the early game. Really just goes over Dalran Mage. So if a spell deck could use some use for that, for trading in the early game perhaps. Stone Splinter Trog, this is the younger Trog we were talking about. Whenever your opponents cast a spell, gain 1 attack. Solid, great for arena. Good for perhaps early gameage. Some people would like to play Lorewalker Cho with this as well. We'll see how it rolls. I love Trogzor the Earthanator. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, summon a Burly Rockjaw Trog. Now remember how nasty the Burly Rockjaw Trog is. If I could get this guy up behind a tank, I'd be laughing. If I could ramp into him, my opponent would immediately focus this guy down. So mana value wise, even if this guy dies, providing I can get my opponent to cast a spell and they don't just trade it away with minions and I get some Burly Rockjaw Trogs, then I'm getting some really good mana efficiency out of it. So I think people try and find a way of making this sort of a little bit abused and used. I'd like to see, I hope that people find a way of making it work. It feels as though it could work somehow, but it's an expensive setup. A Dark Bomb, 3 damage for 2 mana. Feels pretty nice. Don't manager mind it at all. Warlocks I think will enjoy that. 2 for 3. Weaker than Frostbolt, people do say, and I get that because it doesn't have the freeze and the mana efficiency is a little bit. Dark Wispers, Wisps fans unite. Summon 5 Wisps, or give a minion 5/5 and taunt. Remember, of course, that those 1/1 Wisps could get buffed up with a Hobgoblin, so that is like a sort of random, like Savage Roar and Force of Nature combo. 5/5 for the taunt is expansive for 6 mana, so if you do something fun with Wisps, that might be fun. Echo of Medivh, copy of each friendly minion into your hand. That is nuts. I fully expect that. Hey, welcome on Bradomo as well. This card is just insane. It will get played. It's just going to be absolutely nuts. Mages, get this card, play it now. Really, I can think of so many ways to abuse this in a mage deck. It's not even real. Yeah, it will see play. I think it's finding the best way to use it. Gazlo, whenever you cast a 1 mana spell, add a random mech to your hand. Okay, so you need cheap spells. Remember that spare parts are 1 mana spells. So for that reason, Gazlo goes nicely into the sort of mech world. Remember that Paladin has lots and lots of small 1-cost mana spells. So a Paladin mech deck, but this is clearly designed to use spare parts. So if you're meching, maybe playing Paladin, Gazlo could see some play, but he'll be a specific deck rather than a sort of global card that everyone will try and use. Gnome Regan inventory, charge and taunt, 1 attack, 4 health. He's a good, a reasonable wall, but the charge could make him useful against aggro as well. So you could perhaps buff him with shamans. Might be interesting in a mech deck. Don't know. King of Beasts. Taunt, Battlecry, gain 1 attack for each other beast you have. A reasonable mid-game finisher if you manage to flood the table with beasts, or if you can drop in perhaps after Unleash the Hounds or something similar. Does not have charge. So could be quite used. I think it's going to be, can you finish the game mid-range with a Hunter, or do you want to throw him down as a late-game sort of turboed up finisher behind a bunch of beasts? Remember, snakes from Snake Trap are also beasts too. Light of the Nari, restore 3 if the target still damaged, summon a Light Warden. This card basically makes using a normal Light Warden a bit silly. You could play this on top of an injured Blade Master in a Priest deck, and this is Priest, so why use Light Warden? But it will be pretty cool. I can see Priest using it. Lost Horse Rider, 4/5/4, average card pretty much. Mistress of Pain for Warlocks. Whenever this minion deals some damage, restore that much health to your hero. So yeah, buff this attack. I can see it. It's lifelink for you magic players coming into Hearthstone. So as a 2-drop, this is awesome, and it doesn't really have a negative effect like a lot of Warlocks. So Warlocks will play this. I can see this being dropped, buffed in all kinds of ways. Remember, it's a demon, and we've seen lots of demon buff cards on top of the demon buff cards that already exist. So it's a really, really good card, but powering it up will make it even more helpful with the lifelink. You know, deal 5, restore 5. Imagine if you dropped a Demon Fire on top of this. It would be really, really awesome. So Mistress of Pain in Demon decks or others will see play. I think good to work out how that will work. Moga the Ogre. All minions have a 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy. A comedy legendary, I think. All minions, not just your own. If you really want to mess up your opponent, it could be quite hilarious. Ogre Brutes. The Ogre theme of attacking wrong enemy. Now, in terms of value, 3 mana for 4/4 is really, really good. But let's not forget, if you can silence this, it's a really strong turn 3 drop. So how can people play the Ogre cards with silences? I think we'll try and find some ways that will happen. Quartermaster for the Paladin. Give your silver hand recruits 2/2. This will see play for reasons that you'll see in future cards, but 2 attack 5 will live. And if you can get loads down, token Paladin is going to be a thing. Recycle, shuffle an enemy minion into your opponent's deck. Nice hard removal. It's a 6 mana trap, but remember it's not going to trigger a death rattle because the card doesn't die. So druids might throw this in. It is quite pricey for the removal, but it should be quite nice. Shadow Bomber for a priest, 3 damage to each hero. Yeah, it's okay. Maybe it would help do some nuking. I don't know if you're playing a Shadow Priest deck. Situational. Siege Engines, whenever you gain armor, give this minion 1 attack. We'll see play and control warriors. I think it would be pretty awesome. So this should be pretty nice. I think it will be really, really nice. There'll be enrage decks with this as well. Imagine playing this with an Armor Smith and a Commanding Shout. Murlocs are now becoming a shaman thing. Whenever another friendly Murloc dies, draw a card with an overload of 1. So throw this in and start making a shaman Murloc deck. Murloc would be really, really quite comedy, I think. This is going to be used. I think people will try shaman Murlocs with this card. He's like a Cogmaster, but he can take more of a beating. Tinker Sharpsword Dog, give your weapon +3 attack. Combo, give a random friendly minion +3 attack. That will come through quite nice, I think. Combo-ness for rogues. That can be not only buffing your own weapon, but also buffing your minions. I mean, it's good, but is the rogue going to be alive enough to use this and make a use of it? I think that's the challenge. So when you look at it on the surface, it looks good, but I don't think in terms of the meta game it might be a bit of a challenge squeezing it in. Might be a tech card. Flame Leviathan for the mage. This got played against me in Arena. It's not great at all. You know when your opponent's drawn it because everything gets 2 damage. It may hurt you, it may win you. Okay, if you've got Nerubian eggs, it triggers them. It's 2/2 random for me, but who knows? Maybe there's a way of breaking. I like this for warriors. This is going to be absolutely nuts. Battle Cry of shuffling a mine into your opponent's deck, and when drawn, it explodes for 10 damage. Imagine if you then throw a spare part on top of this and throw it down again. You can put multiple mines in your opponent's deck. If you can find a way of picking this up and throwing it down, and picking this up and throwing it down, Brewmasters, spare parts and similar, that would be hilarious. And remember, 10 damage for each mine that your opponent draws. Mal'Ganis for the Warlocks, where the demons have 2/2 and your hero is immune. Very nice indeed. I can see that getting some play in demon decks. That'll be very, very cool indeed. People will try and make demon decks with it. Malorn for the druids. Shuffle this into your deck. Of course, if it's silenced, it doesn't get the effect. It's a beast, so it can benefit from beast type effects as well. Malorn, I think, will also see play. If it dies and gets shuffled in and comes back, it's just going to be a never-ending cycle of druid life. Neptulon for the Shaman. Add 4 random Murlocs to your hand and overload 3. So yeah, Shamans wanting to play Murlocs will probably pop this chap in. That's going to be very interesting indeed. So Murloc Shaman is going to be a thing with that new legendary. Target dummy. Not amazing at all for what it is. I don't think you'll use. Good for combos, of course, if you're a rogue or something similar, but otherwise, no. Tropin's Gallywix, 4-0 rogue. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, gain a copy of it and give them a coin. The coin is Gallywix's coin. It's not a normal coin. It does give them an extra bit of mana, but then you get this spell too. So yeah, it's not fantastic. I'm struggling to find ways that you could play that effectively, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Vol'jin, swap health with another minion. Not bad at all, this, because you can just get bigger health depending on what's on the table at all. Any minion, period. So you can just grab some health from anything else on the table. So that'll be very, very nice. Burrowing Mine, that gets summoned by the Warrior Legendary, 10 damage, draw a card. Gallywix's coin, as we previously mentioned, and Ogre Warmaw, 15% chance to attack the wrong enemy, 4 attack and 2. So yeah, comedy could get some removal, otherwise not going to be fabulous. So thank you very much for tuning in, folks. I'm going to have to dash very quickly, but that is our turbo review of Goblins vs Gnomes. Do come and join us again. If you're on YouTube, check us out, twitch.tv/FailCraft Casts. We go live Monday through Friday. You can see the times bottom left. We'll always tweet on @FailCraft Casts when we're going to be going live on Twitter. If you're live, do check out youtube.com/FailCraft Casts. We have over 100 episodes of our Hearthstone half hour, and last but not least, the website failcraft.org, articles, videos and more there. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to be back either Monday or Tuesday, December the 8th, or Tuesday the 9th for Goblins vs Gnomes launch. We're going to be opening 60 packs and then jumping straight into some ladder and seeing what decks we can make and how they affect the new metagame. Thanks for tuning in. See you soon. Do like, comment and share, and let me know what we can do better.